Fun one for you today. Hopped on with JD of Locked On Cardinals to talk about trades for a catcher, talk about how their guys did in the Arizona Fall League, and to talk about the surprising similarities between prospect pitcher Matthew Liberatore and National League Cy Young runner-up Max Fried. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On MLB Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Cardinal fans. I'm JD Haffern, and I'm a national radio sports anchor, born and raised in the Lou and a lifetime Cardinals fan. And I'm your host for Locked On Cardinals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. I want to thank those of you who make Locked On Cardinals and Locked On MLB Prospects your first listen every day. So, as I mentioned in the intro, we've talked a lot about prospects recently because we had the Arizona Fall League, and now we're talking about trying to acquire other pieces for this Cardinals team to make a push for a World Series championship this year. They've fallen short the last few years, so some things need to be changed. Some things need to be upgraded, and the prospects are going to be a big part of how the team acquires these assets because we don't think that they're going to spend all that much money in free agency. Sure, the payroll's probably going to go up, but that doesn't mean that they're going to make some big splash in free agency. It appears that the trade route is something that the Cardinals have been good in the past. That's usually where they've acquired guys like Goldschmidt and Arenado, and they had to give up prospects to do that. So to talk about the prospects today, let's bring in Lindsey Crosby. All about the prospects. Mr. Crosby, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing well. Always good to be here with some of the best, most educated baseball fans in the sport.
Look at that. He's already buttering us all up, telling us how good they are. All right. Well, let's hope you think as highly of the fan base, you think as highly of the prospects as that they have that are maybe not even going to be with the team much longer. So I was telling them in the intro here that, you know, you're probably going to have to trade some pieces here so that you can get bigger pieces to complete this puzzle that we call a world championship. So the biggest names and the one position that's been targeted the most, at least from everything we've gathered and from what we've heard from John Mozeliak, is they're going after a catcher. It seems to be their number one priority over any starting pitching or any outfielders or even any of these big name shortstops. They want a catcher. Free agent wise, you've got Wilson Contreras, which is going to be very, very expensive. And people aren't sure whether or not he's going to be worth it or not. They don't think he's that great of a catcher. Some people, I think he's fine, but you're basically putting him in there to be a hitter, not so much the defensive side, which is something that the Cardinals really, really cherish, is the defensive side of the game, because Gold Glovers all over the infield. You've had him in the outfield. We've had Yadier Molina for what feels like 75 years behind the plate. So that's what
a tough act to follow. Golly.
Exactly.
No pressure.
We know. Yeah, right. And we know that we can't replace Yadier Molina. You're not going to find another one of those. So that's an obvious thing. But if we were to go out and trade to get another catcher to be that starter for next year, there's been two names at the top of the list that people have been mentioning the most, and that is Sean Murphy from the Oakland A's and then Alejandro Kirk from the Toronto Blue Jays. So why don't we start with Sean Murphy? And Lindsey, what do you think would be a package that is worthy for somebody like Sean Murphy, who's got a lot of competition from other teams that are going to be coming in to try to take him?
That's the big thing to remember before I say the package is Sean Murphy is highly coveted by a lot of teams. And some fans will look at Sean Murphy and not understand why, because you go out and you say, oh, at 215 with 18 home runs, like that's not that special, an OPS of 759. But you have to remember the context, right? The ballpark that he plays in is absolutely cavernous. And then the lineup that he was in was full of journeymen and prospects, no protection, no run support. And so the advanced statistics say that Sean Murphy is a very good offensive catcher. 122 WRC plus, fourth among catchers, expected on-base average of 344, which the MLB average is like 313. And the closest offensive comparisons to what Sean Murphy did last year, JT Realmuto, who's another complete catcher who will catch every day, Carlos Correa, and Francisco Lindor. So that's the caliber of hitter you're getting if you add Sean Murphy to your lineup. So that being said, that and the competition out there to get him, I have a four-player package. And the headline piece is going to have to be one of the top guys. I'm either looking at shortstop Mazin Wynn, simply because that is a position of need for the Athletics, or Nolan Gorman, because they do need lefty power as well. To go with that, I'm putting in a top 10 pitcher. I'm looking at a Gordon Gracefo, a Cooper Yerpe. Matthew Liberatore is technically on that list, but later I want to tell you why you should keep him. And then I'm looking at two lower level prospects, like a hitter and a pitcher. So the pitcher, I'm looking at somebody like a right-hand pitcher, Freddie Pacheco. Fastball slider, could work as a reliever right now, but has some promising tools. And then a power hitter like a Chandler Redmond, or maybe an outfielder with high contact ability like a Juan Bin Cho. So 4-player package, but it's one top 5 prospect, one top 10 prospect, and ultimately 4 top 30 prospects to get Sean Murphy.
Now, I know the initial reaction from people is going to be, whoa, that's crazy. That is way too much to give up. But what people have to realize is, even though the Cardinals have fleeced a lot of teams over the years when it comes to trades, Nolan Arenado, anybody? Paul Goldschmidt, which, Carson Kelly's a good piece. But, for the most part, the Cardinals have won these trades. But you do have to give up things to get good things. And they're not going to take the crap left over, like where people are like, well, send him Paul DeYoung and they don't want him. Why would they want him? You want to actively get rid of these guys. Why would somebody else want them if that's the case? So you have to give up something big. And you mentioned Mazin Wynn, who's the the number 2 overall prospect in their system. He's a shortstop. And I had a talk with Sully about Mazin Wynn, and because he's like, yes, obviously Sean Murphy is a great idea to go after and get. He would fit in nicely there. And I told him, I was like, he's a double-A shortstop, and he goes, good, bye, have fun. Like, he's like, he treats him as if like they don't really mean all that much, because you can get an all-star caliber, Gold Glove caliber catcher and put him right in your lineup, where we don't really know if Mazin Wynn's going to be what everybody wants him to be, because he's still 20 years old.
Yeah, and the question to me with Mazin Wynn has always been offense, right? It's always been, how is the bat going to come through? As far as, contact ability, he's still prone to chasing out of the zone. He's still susceptible to good spin, and it's something where he's just at the point where he's gotten enough highlight plays, he's had enough flashy moments where he has the name recognition and he has the shine, but he hasn't had that higher level test where he has a chance to lose value. So this is the peak of his value, because there's just enough unknown to know whether or not he's going to work. But ultimately, it's a situation where he's not going to help you in 2023. He may or may not help you in 2024, depending on his development. And even when he does come up, he doesn't have as big of an impact as a Gold Glove catcher would have, and you are in a contending window right now. Paul Goldschmidt is 35 years old? I mean, you are in the middle of a contending window right now. He also happens to fit a position of need, because they need middle infielders, they need shortstops, and so that's kind of why it works. If it's Nolan Gorman instead, that's a situation where position of strength for you, because you have plenty of guys who can play in the middle infield or who can play in the outfield. I know the DH spot is now opening up, but it just feels like you probably don't want Nolan Gorman DHing every day. That's better to rotate that around some of the vets and give their legs a day off. So that's kind of why I picked those 2 guys. The only real untouchables in this system to me are Jordan Walker and Tink Hence. Other than that, I think for the most part, we're open for business. And that should be how it works if you're trying to get a massive upgrade like you would have if you get Sean Murphy or Alejandro Kirk.
Yeah, which is somebody I want to bring up next here. But yeah, when you talk about the middle infield for the Cardinals, you've got a couple guys. If you believe in Brendan Donovan and he's a guy that you think is going to be legit, if you think what happened this past year where he wins a Gold Glove, solid on-base percentage guy, can play second base.
Third rookie of the year.
Yeah, and then and you have Tommy Edman over at shortstop, Gold Glove caliber shortstop, who, by the way, has outstanding numbers, was easily a top 10 shortstop offensively in Major League Baseball this year. If you believe in those guys, then the need for a shortstop's not really there for this year or next year, which makes Mason Wynn more expendable, which is what I try to tell people. I don't want to trade Mason Wynn, but I really want to get a good catcher. Alejandro Kirk's the other one that has been brought up a lot from the Toronto Blue Jays. Not a lot of people know much about him because he's essentially played one full season with the Blue Jays so far. What can you tell us about him, and what would you give up comparing the prospects that you just decided you would move for Sean Murphy? Would it be similar, less, more for Alejandro Kirk?
So for Alejandro Kirk, the big thing here is physically, he looks like a catcher, right? 5'8", 265, big boy. It's something where you've got, I believe, about 4+ years of team control left because he is so much younger. He debuted in 2020. And last year, almost 4 WAR, 285, 372, 415. Played. He was catcher 1B. So he didn't, he when Danny Jansen was healthy, Jansen was taking the majority of starts. He was alternating catching and DHing. You could probably work him out a little bit at first base, but you don't need that. You're taken care of there. Won a Silver Slugger. So, I mean, absolutely was an all-star, has plenty of offense for you. The package for me is I'm starting off with someone like a Nolan Gorman. They have plenty of infielders, but specifically the Blue Jays are looking for lefty power. So I'm looking at like a Nolan Gorman and then an outfielder. They do need an outfielder. Lars Nootbaar is a lefty outfielder. They need left-handers in lineup. They need outfielders. Feels like it's kind of a perfect marriage, especially with Jordan Walker coming up. And then they're going to want a lower-level pitching prospect, again, somebody like a Pacheco, something like that. But I think you can do it with just 2 major pieces, provided that they're both good pieces with plenty of team control, which both Nootbaar and Gorman are.
And you mentioned Danny Jansen, which is somebody that I've also been kind of down on just because of the injuries. And when he's been in there, I guess he's been good. But you think Danny Jansen would be a nice fit for the Cardinals if they ended up going that route instead?
Yeah, going with the idea of the spirit of Yadier Molina. You have a guy who defensively is well regarded, and then also can call a game very well, has very good management of a pitching staff, can really be the veteran presence for you. And then he picked up the power production in 2022, leaned more into pulling the ball. I think it's an offensive profile that would work there in St. Louis. And I don't think the price would be as high because there's only 2 years of team control. So you could probably do that with something like a Lars Nootbaar as the primary piece of the package, throw in a lower level pitcher. And then I think you even have the opportunity to ask for a lower level pitching prospect back. And they have a couple guys with traits you could go out and ask for. CJ Van Eyck just had Tommy John, so he's not going to be pitching this year, but they'll have a 40-man issue with him in about 2 years. Kendry Rojas has 2 good pitches and is a nice little base there in A-ball you could work off of. So I think giving them, using an outfielder, saving a top prospect could probably get you Jansen and maybe another piece if you wanted to go that route instead, provided you're comfortable with your backup options for if he gets hurt again, because he has played in under 100 games in 2 straight years.
That's true. All right. Well, great insight there on what it might take to get some of the names that we've talked about a lot on this show with Sean Murphy, Alejandro Kirk, and Danny Jansen. Arizona Fall League took place and wrapped up a couple of weeks ago, and the Cardinals were well represented there. So we're going to get Lindsay's takes on how everybody did in the Arizona Fall League. Specifically, we want to talk about Connor Thomas, who won the Pitcher of the Year award while he was there. So we'll get into that next on Locked On Cardinals. Now, did you know that over the holidays, property crimes like burglaries and package theft spike nationally? That's why our friends at Simply Safe Home Security are offering 50% off their award-winning security system, so that more families can feel safe and secure this holiday season. And you can order your Simply Safe system for half off today and enjoy advanced security and greater peace of mind this holiday season. And Lindsay actually is a Simply Safe customer. What is something that you feel is like your favorite part about it? Because, you always catch people out showing off the apps and stuff where they're looking at their dogs and they're unlocking things. They're like, look how cool this is. Is that something that stands out to you about Simply Safe, or are there other things that you like more?
I was about to say the app is the best part, because if I'm wherever I am in my house, if I'm traveling, whatever it is, if somebody's coming to the house to do something, I can unlock the front door, turn the alarm off for them, let them in if they're pet sitting for us. I can see when packages get delivered. I can monitor my house, watch my kids in the playroom upstairs without having to go up there. Fantastic. The user interface is great, and it's incredibly reliable. What I love about it is you pick and choose the parts that you want for your system, and then everything installs yourself. No need to drill holes in the wall. You're not inviting strangers into your house. It's simple. It's easy. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and right now it is 50% off, you guys. Don't miss your chance to save big on the only security system that we recommend. 50% off any new Simply Safe system at simplysafe.com/LockedOnMLB today. This is their biggest discount of the year, so don't wait. That's simplysafe.com, LockedOnMLB. There's no safe like Simply Safe. We want to thank you guys for making Locked On Cardinals and Locked On MLB Prospects your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On Sports today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights that only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. We are joined today by Locked On MLB Prospects, Lindsey Crosby, talking about trades. We're talking about prospects, and we've had a couple of guys on the show recently. You mentioned Gordon Graceffo earlier in the show. We just had Mike Antico, who was actually at the Arizona Fall League, which is what we want to talk about now because, the Arizona Fall League, some people may not be as familiar with it, but it's becoming very important because it highlights some of the best prospects in a team's organization. And the Cardinals sent Jordan Walker there. Mason Wynn was there. Tink Hintz, Mike Antico, and then Connor Thomas, who ended up winning the Pitcher of the Year award. What can you tell us about these guys and how they performed at the Arizona Fall League? What stood out to you?
So every organization uses the Fall League differently, but I love what the Cardinals do because the Cardinals' philosophy is the Arizona Fall League is kind of our finishing school. We're going to have our guys in AA. We're going to give them some taste of AAA. We think they're just about to come up. We're going to send them to the Fall League. And then the next year, especially the position players, we're calling them up and they're playing. And so, like watching what Jordan Walker did, 21 games, 286, 367, 558. 22 total hits, 11 of those were extra base hits. Like, just shows me he's very comfortable at the plate. He knows what he's doing. He's getting plenty of power with 5 home runs. Only a little bit of concern, and I think this just may be who he is now, but 10 walks to 23 strikeouts in 21 games. So striking out just over once a game. That's pretty much, I think, who he's going to be at the big league level. You're probably going to see a strikeout rate there in the 20s, but looked comfortable in the outfield. Looks like he's taken that change well. I like the idea of getting him into a different setting and letting him play outfield in that different, he hadn't been out west doing that. Looked good. Connor Thomas. Can we talk about the cutter for Connor Thomas?
Please.
Yeah. So 2019 fifth rounder out of Georgia Tech. And it was always like, okay, he's got a slider that's plus, and then he's got 2 fastballs, a 2-seamer and a 4-seamer. And it's, the 4-seamer's kind of below average. His whole thing was the command was really good. You sharpen and polish this cutter here. And he's always kept the ground ball rate below 50%, which I like. I mean, that's kind of his game is, I don't blow you away with stuff, but I've got plus command. I can put it where I want it. 6 games started in the Fall League in 25 2/3 innings, ERA of 1.75, 34 strikeouts to 5 walks, and the big thing, 0 home runs. So the cutter is helping him miss bats because it's a different pitch shape than he had before. He didn't have anything that had that kind of movement profile. And so you've got the slider, you've got this. Anything you can do to not have to throw that 4-seamer as much, to me, is good. And so I'm higher on him than you would be from looking at his numbers in Memphis last year, simply because of how good he looked in Arizona. Every time I was able to pull the video up and watch games out there, he looked comfortable, and the hitters never did. And that's the big thing for him. Being a control artist without overwhelming stuff is you just have to keep hitters off balance. And he definitely did that with the cutter.
Yeah, and he's not a big guy. We're used to seeing 6'4", 200-pounders out there on the mound these days, and Connor's just your average 5'11", 170 pounds. Like, he's not a big guy whatsoever. Do you think he projects as a starter in Major League Baseball if he keeps up on the pace? If he's going to be in the show one day, is he a starter, or is he somebody that might be better as a relief pitcher coming out of the pen?
So I would have said he's long relief or a spot starter.
Yeah.
adding the cutter in there, being able to pick up the pitch and sharpen it to be as good as it is now, gives me hope that he can fit in the rotation still. The thing, I still think it's going to be back into the rotation simply because the stuff isn't overwhelming, right?
Right.
He's a control artist. He's living off of deception. He's living off of keeping you off balance. And so that's going to limit his overall ceiling. I mean, being 5'11", 175, the extension's not really going to be there. The weight behind it to get the power is not going to be there. But absolutely do think adding that cutter in means he can at least challenge for number 4, number 5. I think his best role is going to be long reliever, spot starter, maybe opening games for you if something happens in a bullpen game. But I do feel better about his big league potential now than I did after the regular season and the numbers he put up in Memphis.
And there's one thing to keep in mind about Connor Thomas, too, is the fact that, he just started throwing this cutter, so nobody had tape on him yet. And so people are going to get a look at it now and might be able to adjust to it better. But when we spoke with Mike Antica, who was playing center field for his team out there in Arizona Fall League, he was like, it was baffling to watch hitters try to hit that pitch. He goes, it'd be over here, and then all of a sudden it's over there. He goes, and you get this great view in center field from it. And he goes, it was nuts. And he was just messing people up in the league, and he was really impressed by it. So that's good to hear. And you also mentioned something. Well, we'll talk about Matthew Liberatore in a little bit. We'll talk about that in a bit. But let's go with what about we mentioned Mason Wynn. What about Tink Hence? Tink Hence didn't get a lot of play in the Arizona Fall League, but you're very high on him. You had him on your untouchable list. What about Tink?
Yeah. Had him on the untouchable list, and the big thing here for Tink Hence is the fastball is really, really good. And what I love about the profile of the pitches is, unlike a lot of pitchers, so a lot of pitchers right now have been working horizontally. So it's a fastball, and then they'll throw a sweepy slider that breaks either left or right away from you, and they kind of keep you on the same plane with your bat. Tink Hence is a vertical pitcher, and so the fastball, he throws it up in the zone very well. He has a lower release, and so it kind of looks like it rises on you as it's coming to the plate. It's not rising, gravity-wise, it can't do that, but it looks like it is. We call that carry when we're kind of breaking down these pitches, and then the curveball breaks down and away from most hitters, and so it's changing your eye level, and you can't just stick your bat into a certain part of the zone and count on making contact. It actually makes you figure out what's coming next. And then he can pull out a changeup that just catches you off guard. So I love that. I loved watching those. And I think the big thing for him is just getting more experience. I mean, 2020 high school guy. So you had, a year and a half in the minors is pretty much all you had. I could see him being one of the few exceptions to that 2023 call up because he's a finishing school guy. But I expect him to spend 23 in the minors, and then towards the end of the season, similar to what the Braves did with Spencer Strider, towards the end of the season, calling him up, giving him a start or two once the division's wrapped up, seeing how he performs to figure out, is he ready to be part of the big leagues in 24. But very big fan of what Tink Hence has done.
Yeah, and that's one thing I want to remind all of our listeners about is these guys are kids, man. These guys are 20. They're the big guys that we're talking about here, the Mason Wynns, the Jordan Walkers, and the Tink Hence. These are 20-year-old guys. And
Tink Hence just turned 20 in August. He put up a 1.38 ERA in low A at age 19.
Yeah. And we know we saw the Braves able to pull it off where they brought up their rookies this year and got the Rookie of the Year award, but it doesn't always work out that way. So I just kind of tell people, just be patient with some of these guys, okay? Don't freak out that they're only in AA still. Just give them some time. Some time. All right, well, we want to talk about a guy that's had some time in the minors, and I'm worried, has the shine worn off on Matthew Liberatore, the one-time Cardinals top pitching prospect going into this past year. That's where he was. He's not there anymore. Gordon Graceffo has gone past him. So we're going to talk about Matthew Liberatore next on Locked On Cardinals. BetOnline.net is a fantastic spot to go. We talk about it all the time, where if you are into sports betting at all, that needs to be your number one source to have it like bookmarked on your computer and the place you need to be for the info, the stats, the news, the analysis. You can get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball to soccer and esports. They've got it all at betonline.net. Now, Lindsay, you were telling me that they've got the odds on World Series for Cardinals next year already up.
Already up. Cardinals are plus 2,000. It is the 11th best odds in baseball to make the World Series.
And obviously, we haven't made any deals yet to improve such things. So hopefully,
if you get Sean Murphy or Alejandro Kirk, the first thing you should do is run to Bet Online and take plus 2,000, because it's going to come down to about 1,500 or so.
Yeah. So jump in on it. Like I mentioned, have it bookmarked. They're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix on whatever sport you're interested in. You know, you got the college conference championship games coming up, college football, guys like Michigan, Purdue, Georgia, LSU, and more. Get your picks in there. Obviously, the NFL, ginormous. You know, you can make your bets with Thursday Night Football coming up. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. World Cup going on right now. Obviously, those are things, you know, you want to bet on Team USA, go for it. You can do it at Bet Online, where the game starts. Now, Matthew Liberatore, a guy that I don't even know if he's gotten a fair shake yet in the Cardinals organization, because everybody's upset about how they acquired him, that they had to give up somebody pretty darn good to get Matthew Liberatore in the Cardinals organization. And that has been kind of haunting him since they got him. And he hasn't really, I in my eyes, hasn't lived up to expectations. Again, another young guy. He's still trying to learn everything. But what can you tell us about Matthew Liberatore? Because when I bring him up to other Locked On podcast hosts about trades with their teams, they have no interest in him. Like, they're just like, nah, we don't want him. He stinks. We don't want anything to do with it. Is that what's going on out there, Lindsay? Or do people think that Matthew Liberatore is not really that good anymore?
If you look at just basic stats, then you're not going to think he's great. I mean, his major league ERA in 9 games last year was a 5.97. In Memphis, his ERA in 22 games was 5.17. So on its survey, and I think that's what people are looking at, and they say, oh yeah, he's not good. I tend to have a little bit of a different view. I like Matthew Liberatore. I like what he does. I can't understand he alternates between good starts and bad starts. And it's kind of, when you see it, it's kind of glaring. So his first 6 major league starts last year, the runs allowed 4, 0, 4, 0, 5, 0. Memphis, the end of the year in September, 7 earned runs, 0 earned runs, 4 earned runs, 0. Like, he just alternates, and I'm not quite sure what to make of it. There's a couple things. I think it's all mental. So 36 innings in the big leagues last year. So opening 36 innings, walked 7 of those 36 guys. He only walked 18 batters, but 7 of those were to open an inning. When I look at righties had an OPS over 1,000 on him, and I just, it's the stuff is good. Here's a comparison to somebody else who I think is really good. So Matthew Liberatore, his fastball, it's a low spin fastball, right about league average velocity. Curveball, high spin curveball, to go along with a sinker slider change. This other pitcher, very similar arsenal. Fastball, about 55% of league average, low spin, high spin curveball, slider change, sinker. The other pitcher, the exact same arsenal, Max Fried. He is hit the 5 pitches he throws are the 5 pitches Max Fried throws. And the characteristics of Liberatore's are very similar to the characteristics of Fried's. And so, to me, the stuff is similar to Max Fried. It's got to be mental. We knew that Liberatore was very much a cerebral pitcher, was very much a game plan pitcher. I want to mix my pitches, do my sequencing, read your swing, and figure out what you're doing. I don't know if it's just because he went back and forth between St. Louis and Memphis, he never got a chance to prep adequately, or what it may have been. But and I'm not saying that he's the next Max Fried, but I'm saying that
Oh, no, you can't take that back now. He is the next Max Fried.
He is the next Max Fried. National League Cy Young runner-up. No, but the stuff is similar. And so I don't think the stuff is the reason why he struggled. Now, the change, he threw one changeup all year to lefties. They were all to righties. And 31% whiff percentage on it. So, like, it's a good pitch. At the same time, batting average against a 455 and slugging of 818. A little bit of that was bad luck. A little bit of that is not necessarily hitting his spots. So I think there's a little bit of control tweaks you can do, but most of it's mental. And he just has to figure it out. And the problem when you're a competing team, a team who's always competing, like the Cardinals, like the Braves had, is it's hard to let a guy figure it out on the job.
Yeah.
Right. You can't bring him up to the big league level and let him pitch every fifth day with an ERA it's close to 6. And so how to figure it out, I don't quite know exactly what you do, but I know that all the pieces are in there for a solid number 3 pitcher if you can figure out how to unlock it.
And it's, again, I'm going to hit this again because it's something that I got to remind everyone. He's 23. He's not like some 27-year-old guy now that is missing his prime. He's still growing into it. Max Fried, who you mentioned, was a good comparison as far as what he's got. Didn't really take off in the pros until he was 25. You know, he came up at the age of 23, had to learn some things, had to get used to things, and then finally put it all together and is having a great career. And if Matthew Liberatore can have anything even remotely close to what Max Fried is doing, I think people will forget the name of Randy Arozarena a little bit quicker.
There is absolutely plenty of time on Matthew Liberatore. It's just a matter of you got to get the right pitching instructor in there. And once it clicks, you're going to be happy you get them.
Yeah. And they've got a new voice coming in. You know, Mike Maddox is not going to be the pitching coach this year. And maybe that changes some things for people. New, hitting coach as well coming in. So with Turner Ward taking over. And, maybe things get altered a little bit for some of these guys that haven't quite lived up to what they thought they were supposed to be at this point in their careers. But, that's one thing that we don't have, which you mentioned as Cardinals fans, is that, we're always competing. So patience is very small when it comes to these guys. And, you're like, he's got to be good now. If like people already want to ship Nolan Gorman all over the place, that he sucks. Because of what happened this last year. Yeah, and he struck out a lot. Well, I mean, that's kind of where we are in the world of baseball these days. The strikeouts happen as long as you still have that power. So, final wrap up here before we let you go, Lindsay. If you had a choice and you could make a trade for one of those 3 catchers that we talked about at the beginning, you've got Sean Murphy, Alejandro Kirk, or you can go with Danny Jansen there. And with the packages that you proposed, which one do you think is the smartest move for the Cardinals to compete in this window that they're in right now? Because this is their time with Goldie and Arenado, age-wise, contract-wise. This is where they need to be. They need to compete now. Which one do you like the best for them?
The guy that I'd like the Cardinals to go get is Danny Jansen because he's going to cost the least. But the guy I think you should get is Sean Murphy because Sean Murphy is the only one who is reliably good both offensively and defensively and can catch almost every day. And so I think adding Sean Murphy to this lineup brings you probably into the top 5 on odds for the World Series in 2023.
All right. Well, Lindsay, I appreciate you as always. Great insight. Don't forget to always make Locked On Cardinals and Locked On MLB Prospects your first listen every day. We want to thank you guys for joining us today. And your next listen, make sure you jump over and check out Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get podcasts. As always, be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow on Twitter at LO_Cardinals and at JD Sports Radio. Obviously, you can follow Lindsay at Crosby Baseball. And he's bouncing around to all sorts of different podcasts. So if you ever want to know what the other side is thinking, Lindsay's over there talking to these people. He knows them. He's getting the scoop from all of them. So make sure you give him a follow, and I'm sure you'll enjoy that. Lindsay, again, thank you so much for joining us. You guys are the best fans of baseball for a reason, and we'll see you next time on Locked On Cardinals.